indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item 2, request for budget adjustments, routine applications. Nisha?
The first is RV1, which is 122,000 appropriation for the approval to use. This is the registrar's office, and it's grant proceeds, 122,000.
So I will move that or second it, whichever.
Okay. So
Can
that's
can I just note for the record, the agenda says register, it should be
Yeah,
registrar.
That's why I had a
Thank
hard
you.
time reading it.
as noted.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Nisha Rohr, second. Leslie Tarkington. This is
Moved
a routine application. Any objections to accepting that with unanimous consent? Okay, that passes 12-0-0. Item 3, non-routine applications. The first one is ED1, Board of Education, for Central Middle School, $42,117,000. Additional appropriation for Central Middle School. That item was also in front of the Budget Committee, and both at the Budget Committee, it was deemed not in legal order by the town attorney, and that is the same thing here at the full BET. So we will not be taking up that item. And that applies to...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, allow me to finish your sentence. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the chair. And that applies also to, finish the sentence.
No, that's fine.
I know of no authority by which the chair pulls an item off the agenda. I'd like to speak to that if I can for just a moment, to my point of order. First of all, let the record reflect that in our handbook at page 18, there's specific provision which says items shall be added to the meeting agenda at the request of 4 members of the BET, communicated to the chair at least 10 business days prior to the meeting. Let the record reflect also that an email was sent over the names of the 6 Democratic members of this board requesting that this item appear on the agenda. It was sent on the 28th of September, which is to say 11 days before the calendar. So this item is on the agenda. I have a copy of Robert's Rules if anybody wants to take a look at Robert's Rules. There's no provision in Robert's Rules for a chair to have the authority unilaterally to take an item that's on the agenda and remove it on his authority alone. There is provision, if it's of interest to anybody, I'll read it. There is provision in section 26 of Robert's Rules. Actually, maybe it's first maybe appropriate for me to read something else. Our rules also say, quoting again from page 18 of our handbook, all BET members, all BET meetings, regular or special, shall be conducted in accordance with the current parliamentary procedures as defined by Robert's Rules of Order Revised and by the requirements of state statutes governing freedom of information. So the fact that there is no procedure in Robert's Rules for a unilateral withdrawal of an item from an agenda by a chair takes fruit. There is provision in section 26. It's found at page 267, 268 of Robert's Rules, and the lead-in introductory sentence reads as follows. There's an objection to the consideration of a question. The purpose of an objection to the consideration of a question is to enable the assembly to avoid a particular original main motion altogether when it believes that it would be strongly undesirable for the motion even to come before the assembly. It requires an objection to be registered by a member of this board. It doesn't even require a second. It then requires a vote. And that's the only process that I'm aware of that would lead to the removal of an item from the agenda. It does not happen by the chair. It happens by vote of the membership itself. I also want to address the underlying issue. The underlying issue was a memorandum that was distributed by the town attorney's office indicating that they believe the item is premature, and the basis of that was a memorandum that Assistant Attorney Wetmore had written. First of all, and the point of the memorandum is that it is premature to fund a construction project when that construction project does not yet have MI. The particular sentence from Mr. Wetmore's memorandum appears on page 4, and it reads as follows. In section 99 of the charter, the term "no action," that's in quotes, has been interpreted to mean that no appropriation in furtherance of a particular project can be approved until such time as an MI has been granted. Well, that's his assertion in the memorandum. What are the authorities that he cites? Well, he doesn't cite any authority. He's only the authority, so he cites himself, I guess. Well, what are the factual examples that he cites to indicate that it's been our custom and practice that we don't fund projects until MI has been approved? Well, in our handbook, page 27, it says, from time to time, the BET enacts policies that serves as its operating guidelines. And indeed, we have lots of policies. We have a debt policy. It appears at page 83. We have a fund balance policy. It appears at page 86. We have a policy regarding Board of Education transfers across major object codes. That appears at page 96. We have a policy regarding review of investment agreements, page 94. We have a policy regarding OPED investment policy, page 90. We also have a funding policy for OPED, page 87. We have a cash management policy, that's at page 81. But there's one policy that we don't have. We have no policy adopted by the BET that says that we don't fund projects until after MI has been approved. I took an opportunity to take a look back to see, well, how have we handled these matters in the past? And I obtained...
Can I have a point of order here? Sir, you're objecting to the unilateral decision of the chair to add this, to take this off the agenda. You're now arguing policy and other things that are really not related to this. It's the question before.
Mr. Chairman,
the question before
excuse me,
us.
I think I have the floor. I'm almost
I'm
finished.
also,
gonna
I'm saying
ask-
that you are out of.
I'm
you're-
not out of order. I am, the basis, excuse
Are you
me,
going to finish?
I'm going to finish fairly quickly. Give me 2 more minutes. Reviewing some of the items to see exactly how we have handled construction projects, I obtained through the Planning and Zoning Office a list of the MI approvals from 2014 to just a few months ago. I plucked out of them the ones that seemed to relate to schools, not that I needed to limit it to schools. And for the interest of this board, as an example, Cardinal Stadium, Phase 1A. Construction, $3.9 million, was approved on March 28, 2019. MI wasn't approved until 4 months later, July 28, 2020. Cardinal Stadium, Phase 1B, construction funding, $3.6 million. We approved the construction funding on April 27th, 2020. MI wasn't approved until 8 months later, on January 20th, 2021. Julian Curtis, construction funding was approved on April 19th, 2022. We still don't have an MI according to their records on that particular phase of the project.
I'm going to raise my point of order.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm raising my point of order because I don't think that this is germane to your contention that it should be
So allow
be
me to
taken off the call by the chair.
Allow me to speak to that.
This is an argument that you're making for funding without an MI. This is not for the question that is before us.
I'm going to propose a convenient middle ground. First of all, if one of my Republican colleagues would like to do so, you're free to object to
Jeff?
consideration of the item. I'm going to propose a middle ground, and that is that I would make a motion to continue this item to Thursday, that's the 19th of October, which would move it to after the Planning and Zoning meeting, at which MI is before the Planning and Zoning Commission. That the Budget Committee could act on it and the BET could act on it shortly thereafter. And without losing time, which is costly, there would be an opportunity for us to reverse the sequence and avoid the necessity to argue the merit or demerit of this. I'm raising an objection to the unilateral removal of an item from the budget, from the agenda by the chair alone,
Okay.
but I'm hereby offering as an alternative, I'm hereby moving to continue the item to Thursday, the 19th of October.
Second.
So, okay. Well, first, Okay, I think what we first have to take up is, I think you're appealing the decision of the chair and of the town attorney.
Well,
That's the first.
if you rule its
because-
removal, I will appeal. I haven't appealed yet. I've raised as a point of
Okay.
order that you were announcing the removal from the agenda, and I raised a point of order.
Okay. So I think the first thing we have to dispose of is are you making a motion to overrule the chair and the town attorney?
For the moment, I've offered a substitute, and the thing standing before you now is a motion to continue the item to the 19th. That motion has been made
Okay,
and
I'll give
seconded.
you-
That's before the board.
Right, I'll give you my view on that. Look, the BET has always taken up items as necessary. We've had countless special meetings, and certainly there's no reason to think that we will not be able to attend to such an issue depending upon what happens tomorrow. But I don't know that the 19th works, okay? All I know is that I have always, and this board before me has always, treated with urgency any issue that was in front of us, okay? But I can't commit to that right now. I mean, you're fair, you can make a motion to overrule myself and the town attorney. Is that what motion you want to make?
So far, the chair hasn't ruled that it's removing the item from the agenda, so I didn't assert the appeal.
Okay.
What's before you now is a motion
Right.
seconded.
I mean, it's not something I wanted to do because I think the town attorney made their position clear, but if it's necessary to, make this a more efficient conversation, yes, I will rule that this item is not in legal order.
I appeal.
Okay. Nisha, can you take the vote?
Okay.
For clarity, a yes vote supports the appeal, a no vote rejects the appeal.
And who is the second?
David.
David?
David, are you the,
Well,
well, you were the second on the original.
Sorry, maybe not.
So I seconded Jeff's motion to put this on the agenda for the 19th. That's what I was seconding. That was, I thought, your middle ground, Jeff, and I think that's a terrific idea, so that.
Okay,
we
so
don't-
right now we're talking about the motion to appeal.
Right now, I've made a ruling to support the town attorney that this item is not in legal order. Okay? I think that's well understood. That's the rule.
I'm
So,
sorry.
I mean, if you want to appeal,
For clarity, Mr. Chairman, when you say it's not in legal order, are you also saying you are removing it from the agenda? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm appealing that.
Okay. Do you have a second?
But
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So Jeff Ramos himself. Okay.
now we're a little confused because without getting to the point that you ordered it off the agenda, without getting to the point that I took the appeal, in that interval in there, I made a motion which was seconded, and I think frankly, appropriately, we ought to deal with that motion first. It was first in time.
No. Okay. Your first objection was my suggestion the town attorney had asked said this item was not in legal order. That was the nature of the conversation. That is a discussion. Okay? I certainly recognized you and you spoke in great detail. Thank you for communicating your ideas, but that was the item in front of us. Okay? So right now, we're going to have a vote. If you want to overrule the chair, we're going to have that vote. And I believe Stevens seconded that, Nisha?
I'll start with you.
So a yes would mean the chair is overruled, a no would mean the chair is not overruled.
Okay, Harry, I'll start with you.
No.
Laura?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
David?
Yes.
I'm a no. Dan?
I'm a no.
Leslie?
No.
Leslie Moriarty?
Yes.
Jeff Raymer?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's 6-6, Dan.
Okay? The ruling of the chair has been sustained. We are now going to go to, we're going to also, F13 is not relevant. We're going to go to ED2.
No,
We'd
I'm
just
sorry.
like-
I have a motion on the floor to continue the item to the 19th of October.
Okay, I will let you know, I will not be supporting that motion. And the reason for that is, again, I've said we have always taken up items, we have always scheduled meetings as necessary, but we do not know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I'm not going to schedule a hypothetical meeting. I do not think it's necessary, but obviously you can make the motion, but I will not be supporting that. Laura?
So I appreciate the spirit that, the BET would act expeditiously if the Planning and Zoning Commission does grant MI tomorrow, but let's just talk about the pathway forward, because I think the Building Committee does need direction. So if the 19th doesn't work, can we talk about a time frame? Would it be before the end of next week? I mean, can we just get some clarity around the timing?
Can I,
Laura, thank you for the question. What I can tell you is, certainly this isn't just in terms of my chairmanship, but this board has always acted with urgency whenever necessary. And no, we can't be having a hypothetical discussion. We will know tomorrow, or I suppose Wednesday morning, and we will do what we always do. There'll be sets of emails, we'll communicate with the right people, we'll figure out a calendar, we'll figure out, where the urgency is, what needs to be done, and we will do it. We always have. So I'm not going to support any motions tonight in terms of scheduling calendar events. It's just not, I've not seen it done in the past, and I respect your right to make those motions, but I will not support them.
I'm just going to add, unlike Old Greenwich that needed the funds to move ahead with design development drawings, that type of urgency isn't immediate with Central Middle School. And I think, obviously, as you point out, we have always agreed to meetings and have accommodated the Board of Education and its building committees. But the urgency to have a meeting on Thursday is, I don't understand it.
So thank you, Leslie. So I would say unless there's,
Chairman.
unless the motion's withdrawn, I suggest that we call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, before we call the vote, could I, maybe as a point of order, we do have in our midst the chairman of the building committee. We also have the chairman of the Board of Education. And the issue of urgency and timing and so forth is very germane to the topic, which is, on the agenda. And I would ask whether we might hear from them as to whether they have any sense that a vote on this is urgent or not urgent.
Okay. David, okay, look, again, I'm just going to say again, we have, in my knowledge, we've always scheduled meetings, okay, with a sense of urgency. But I do not see the purpose of having a hypothetical conversation of what may happen tomorrow night. Okay, we can have that discussion first thing Wednesday morning. Okay, and I don't object to that. But I'm again, you've made a motion, and if you keep the motion, then we're going to have a vote. But that's not how we're scheduling meetings here. That's at least not how I'm scheduling meetings. So Nisha, can you call the question?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Am I allowed to speak further?
Yes, sir.
I think two observations should be made. One is that the item that was before us for the funding was conditioned upon approval of MI. I hope people haven't lost track of that. Nobody was talking about giving funding, in this case, releasing funding without the MI approval. It was to approve, subject to the approval of the MI. Secondly, I would toss out that although I put the 19th of October into my motion, I would gladly adopt a suggestion from others, if there was a suggestion to be made, of a different but proximate date that would be more agreeable. What is difficult for me to accept, and that governs my vote, is that I don't adhere to the notion of we'll just continue it without date and let it drift that way, because in fact the reality is that this matter has drifted for a very long time, and this is a school that's in very difficult shape, and it's hard for me to understand why the chair doesn't want to hear from the chairman of the school board and the chair of the building committee, both of whom are in the room at this time.
Okay, well, first thing, it's very interesting. Well, first thing, what I've said is that I'm not scheduling a meeting by motion, okay? We've always set up meetings with urgency. That's always been the case. In terms of drifting, I suppose that's another discussion. I mean, I don't think anything's drifted, okay? Central Middle School timeframe has been created with a huge amount of urgency by everybody. We all agreed to do a project without the intervening feasibility study, which would have added an extra year. Now, based upon the fact that we have tried to do everything so quickly, obviously the building committee's been under tremendous pressure to move as quickly as possible, and at some point soon, they will likely achieve an MI. And when that happens, okay, then we will take the next steps here. Okay, so, the sense of delay or drifting, I don't believe that. I think the building committee is working very hard to get this thing done. But this is simply today, tomorrow is not the day for us to act. The day for us to act is when the other boards, P and Z, have acted. Then it will be they'll be properly in front of us, and then we will deal with it as best we can. So I know, unless you're withdrawing your motion,
I'm not.
I suggest, okay, so
Can I
can we
make a
call
comment?
this?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
It's important, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think this is an important point to note, that the role of the BET is to approve funding for projects. So this particular request, the additional appropriation, was not made by the Board of Ed, nor was it made by the Building Committee Chair of CMS. This particular one is being requested by the BET, which, of course, our role is to approve funding, not request funding. So I'll just give you a sense for those that are watching or listening at home, the role of why this is on the agenda today. And the second point I'd like to make quickly is that the urgency for this project to be fully funded does not exist today. The deadline to apply, the reason you need full funding is to be able to apply for the state grant. The state grant process expired on June 30th, 2023. The next time we can apply is June 30th, 2024. I think we all know why we're being forced to try and vote today, because of this idea of a special legislation that some of our legislators will push forth. We have already been told by the state, and I'm happy to read it again, or I'll read it later today, but we have already been told by the state, and I actually will read the quote since we have so many people here. This is a letter directed directly to Mr. Meskers, who is our state representative, who requested an exception handling to have this project considered, both this one and Old Greenwich, be considered outside of the timeline. And the note from DAS, which is our state agency, back to Mr. Meskers was, quote, Greenwich had requested an emergency application, which is not within statute, except for specific circumstances that are outlined in CGS 10287B1. In statute, the only authority related to an emergency is for DAS to be able to waive competitive bidding requirements for a project that has already received a grant commitment, which Greenwich has not. Missing deadlines does not constitute an emergency. And this is an important point to make. The point being is that the state does not recognize this as an emergency or exception handling. So the urgency to try and get full approval, so the 42 would be an additional to the 70, making this 112 million appropriation for Central Middle School. The idea here is to try and get the state to make a special case to approve this project, not within the priority framework, which is June 30th or June 30th of next year, but have a special legislation meet now. There's no legislative session going on until February. This is a long shot. I think even my colleague, Mr. Selpst, who's on the Old Greenwich Building Committee, said this is a long shot to get. So there is no urgency. This entire motion is ridiculous. So I am going to not support any of this. Yeah.
So I'd like to respond briefly, Mr. Chairman. I actually spoke to Mr. Meskers as recently as this weekend. Is my mic on? I spoke to Mr. Meskers as recently as this weekend, and while you characterize this as a long shot, he was significantly more optimistic about the possibility for that. And so respectfully, my point for all of these projects is we ought to do everything we can to see if we can accelerate the funding of them, rather than sit back and simply accept what we've been handed. So I'm going to vote on this, as I intend to vote on Old Greenwich, for pushing for funding now rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Can I also just correct the...
Leslie and then Karen.
Okay.
So I want to respond to something else that was just stated, that there's no sense of urgency for this building. And yes, there is a design process that's still continuing. I think the state of urgency has to do with the fact that members of this board has not voted in support of the design being developed and the budget being developed. There are questions out there, and there are statements that this is not the appropriate funding level for this school. The sooner a building committee and the Board of Ed know whether it has support for this project or not, the better off this town is going to be, and we'll address the situation. The fact, if we keep delaying expressing our support or our lack of support on the record, we are wasting time and we are wasting taxpayer dollars designing a building which ultimately isn't going to get funded. And I think clarity is required, and I think that's why there is a sense of urgency here.
Thank you, Leslie. Karen?
Yeah, just to correct the record, Mr. Raymer had stated that this is, the request for funding was conditioned on obtaining MI. In our package, the request for funding has no such condition. The other thing is that, construction projects throughout the time that I've been on the BET and before on the RTM have always gone through phases, and we've funded on phases. And now we're seeking to upend the whole process and just fully fund everything without going through the proper procedure. Okay, MI is granted. We release funds the way we release funds to get through site approval, and then we go through and fund the final project. This should be no different.
Thank you. Okay, Nisha, can you do the roll call?
I'm sorry, I have a correction to make if I can. Let me read the motion so that you know exactly what was requested to be placed on the agenda, which in accordance with our rules is obliged to be placed verbatim. And it reads as follows. Motion to approve an additional appropriation of $42,016,961 for Central Middle School project, conditioned upon its approval for municipal improvement. Close quote.
Thank you, Jeff. Nisha?
Yep.
Call the roll. Thank you.
Stephen, I'll start with you.
And by the way, this is on, this is
We're voting
this is
on
on
the
the motion to
Continue.
require us to take this up on October 19th, this Thursday.
Motion to continue, right?
Yes, yeah.
Stephen?
Yes.
Miriam? Bill? Drake?
No.
Jeff Raymer?
Yes.
Leslie Moriarty?
Yes.
Leslie Tarkington?
No.
Dan?
No?
I'm a no. David?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Laura Erickson?
Yes.
Harry Fisher?
No.
6-6.
That motion fails. Okay, I'd like to go to ED2, Board of Education, $1,086,000 release of conditions for the Old Greenwich expansion renovation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And can you give a quick report from the building committee?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the budget
From
committee?
Budget committee. Yes, the budget committee took this item up and noted that the Old Greenwich Building Committee had received its MI approvals from the Planning and Zoning Commission, which met one of the 3 original conditions of the project. There were 2 additional conditions, one for an estimator for the project and the second for a estimate on a new project, and those conditions were waived. So the committee released the conditions, the 3 conditions on the Old Greenwich School Building Committee's request.
Okay, and the vote was
The vote was,
recommendation?
the vote was 4-0-0. No, it was a
Okay,
vote,
right, right,
actual
right.
vote.
Okay.
Excuse me, yes.
Okay, any objections to accepting that with unanimous consent? The release of the conditions? Okay. So that passes 12-0-0. Okay, next item is ED3, Board of Education, $39,796,000, additional appropriation, Old Greenwich. Leslie?
Additional appropriation. So we discussed this at the Budget Committee. The chairman of the Building Committee, James Water, reported to the committee that the Old Greenwich School's construction manager at risk announced construction Company estimated the cost on the project to be $39.8 million after the reduction of $2.1 million of design fees. He emphasized that a second independent construction estimate was obtained and reconciled to the down construction company's estimates. Again, these estimates are an opinion based on the assumption that construction starts in June 2024, and they're also basically based on schematic designs. Mr. Waters explained that the estimates will be updated in December 2023, and again, that would be after design development, which is, he indicated he expected to be completed then, and again in January to the April 24 time period. So he added that after the completion of the construction documents phase and if placed on the state's priority list, the project would go out to bid in April 2024. So there was an extended discussion about the pros and cons of this, and there were no votes taken. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, yeah, we did take a vote. Sorry about that. I went on, I was looking at something else. And the vote was taken, and the vote was 2-2,
And,
and the vote failed.
yes, so, and this item was requested to be on the agenda, so it is. I know there was significant discussion at the Budget Committee last week, but I would just want to ask if there's, if anyone would like to have additional discussion.
So I would also add that this was also, can I just?
Yeah, then you.
I should add that this was also a request to put this on our agenda by two of my colleagues on the BET Budget Committee.
Leslie.
Well, I'd like to make the formal motion, I'm not sure we actually put this on the floor, but the formal motion to approve an additional appropriation of $39,796,000 for the renovation of Old Greenwich School.
And Stephen
gonna
Selks
second
is
that,
the
please.
second. Thank you. Leslie?
Yes, so you're going to hear some of the same comments that you just heard on Central Middle School. I hope that this body comes out differently. This project has been under development for a year. The project itself has gone through schematic design, is halfway through design development or so. The budget is based on schematic design, which includes contingency to deal with potential changes and further clarifications of the designs as you go through the further stages of the project, as you go through final site plans. I think it is imperative that we give clarity to the building committee that this project has the support of this board. The RTM, I believe, has indicated they will consider taking this up in October as well. And again, the advice of our state representative said that they will work on the town's behalf to get this project on the priority list for funding. I think everybody on this board understands that there is approximately $6 million or so of state funding that we most likely will be eligible for this project. If the project is delayed to get clarification and confirmation of that state funding, the project doesn't have a shovel in the ground until July of 2025, and the project cost will be $3 million higher. It seems to me that this finance board's responsibility is for good decision-making on town expenditures, and we're looking at pros and cons of acting on the information that we have now, which is pretty far along in the development process, in order to get higher reimbursement and lower cost for the project. So I urge my colleagues to support this additional appropriation.
Stephen?
I'll be brief. My colleagues have heard me in the past, and I'm just going to summarize, mostly for the public who's here. I think there are a few salient points about this particular project. One is, and I think everyone knows this, the community overwhelmingly supports it. It supported it when the Board of Ed designed the ed specs for this and when it did the master plan, and that support has been consistent through the years. Secondly, as my colleague Ms. Moriarty has just said, the design development process is nearly complete, which is a testament to the building committee, which has worked with exceptional zeal and exceptional accomplishment, and kudos to the committee led by Mr. Waters. Third, and I previewed this in my comments about Central Middle School. As Mr. Moriarty said, a vote tonight in favor of funding this project preserves the possibility of commencing construction in 2024 as opposed to 2025. I think there are two important points to be made about that. First is the one that Ms. Moriarty made, which is delay costs taxpayers money. Starting the project in 2024 as opposed to 2025 is fiscally prudent. That's consistent with this board's responsibility to preserve the fiscal sanity of this community. But secondly, and this point is also worth making, as this board has heard, and heard certainly this year at the Budget Committee hearings, the conditions at Old Greenwich School are problematic, to say the least. They're dire. So fixing the problems at this school, lack of ADA compliance, the possibility of sewer discharge, the inadequate security, all the conditions that are addressed by the building committee's proposal is the right thing to do, and not just the fiscally right thing to do. But together, that makes an extraordinarily compelling case, and I would ask my colleagues respectfully to consider that in their votes this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Just as a small data supplement to the articulate comments of my colleague, Mr. Selbst, please recognize that the building committee unanimously recommended ed specs, which were unanimously approved by the school board. The underlying work was done, and this budget request was unanimously approved by your building committee, and an appropriation of $39 million, because we have a rounding error, not error, but we have a rounding factor. Their figures were slightly more exact, of $39,795,873 was approved unanimously by the school board. There was the second, that was on the 5th of October, this month. There was a further motion at the same time that indicated there's a sense of the meeting of the board that they would like to move forward with a renovation of Old Greenwich School and does not want to pursue building a new school. And that motion was made and seconded, and that too was unanimous. I note still that the chair of the school board, the superintendent of schools, and most importantly, the chair of the building committee, of this building committee too, is present in the room. And I don't know why we wouldn't take an opportunity to hear, at least from the chair of the building committee, if he wishes to speak.
Any other comments from the board?
I would just add that since the people that Mr. Raymer cited are in the room with us, and in particular, since in this instance, the MI has been obtained, the matter was discussed before the Budget Committee, I, as one member of the BET, would very much welcome hearing from the chair of the Building Committee to present the matter before us. There are no impediments for us to vote on this, no legal impediments, no other impediments. It has all of the approvals. It's got the zoning approval. It's got the Board of Ed approval. It's got the Building Committee approval. And I would say there has been some concerning discussion in the community about safety aspects of this renovation that I think also need to be addressed in a public forum such as this. It's quite timely that those assertions be addressed and dealt with, and since we have the right people in this room to do that, we should call on them, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Yeah. Harry?
Yeah, nothing compels me to accept the argument that delaying a vote on this matter until we have design development completed and the chance to have estimates other than architect's estimates and have harder numbers, nothing compels me to believe that that's going to delay the start of construction. So I will not be supporting this item.
Point of order, could we, I think we should hear from all members of the board, but will we give a chance to the?
Laura just raised her hand. Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think the building committee has done everything that we've asked it to do and then some. They provided estimates that have been vetted by their professional team. They've been very thorough in their due diligence. Yes, they will be completing design development by year end, but as Leslie Moriarty pointed out earlier, there's ample contingency in the current budget for any changes between now and then. I think the urgency is that we've just released the conditions, and if there is a chance for this project to get special legislation so it can break ground next summer versus a year from next summer, that is certainly urgent. I think this community deserves an answer from this board. Again, the building committee has done everything it's been asked to do. The community has been loud and vocal about the need for this school, and I really think it's our responsibility, it's our charge as elected officials to take a vote and move this project forward. Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the capital approach of asking for all funds in one sum and not asking for more planning money at this point and deferring the request in total. Okay, that quote was made by Leslie Moriarty on Cardinal Stadium, when Cardinal Stadium was being planned. You know, we don't normally do that on this board, and we haven't normally done that on this board. CMS was an exception, and I think we're finding that that exception probably wasn't the right thing to do. Again, we go through phases of planning. We're at the stage where we release a condition to allow them to go through construction drawings to get more, a better idea of the total cost. If it's 39 million, it's 39 million. But we don't know what's going to happen when it goes through P&Z, which normally adds costs, quite frankly, because they want all different things done. And I'm not going to be supporting this at this time.
Just to be clear, in case anyone doesn't understand this, referring to process in this case, when we're talking about a building that is not up to code, that we have a federal complaint against the building, and to talk about delaying it for another year and a half, this is nothing but delay. Keep in mind, a year in a child's life is a year about the education in that building. And I think this board and members of this board who keep wanting to delay, don't understand what that means for that child.
Great sound bites, but that's not the reality. The reality is that ADA was passed in 1990. You were chair, Ms. Erickson was chair. There have been numerous chairs, and nothing was done to correct the problem.
Point of order. This is
Okay?
not, this
I'm
is a
sorry.
personal attack, and it
This is a
won't be
personal-
tolerated.
It's a personal attack
It
on
is a
us as
personal
well.
attack.
It's a personal
Because
attack.
you are
I
accusing
ask
us
you to
of
stop-
delay.
Stop
There is
that
nothing
delay.
delaying. We are going through.
Guys, I'll take this. Yeah,
We
I'll
are
take
going
this up.
through this.
Guys, I'll take this up. Okay. I think anybody on the board that wanted to add, okay, so,
No, I have a request for the chair of the building committee to speak. What's happening to that?
okay. I think we spent an hour and a half at Budget Committee, okay, on this item, and the chair spoke at length, and we thank the chair for that, providing us the background we needed. And that was a public meeting as well.
Are you saying,
But-
wait, there are people here who were not at the Budget Committee, so.
David, I have the floor. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of give you a sense of where I am on this. I heard a few words that are, I think, interesting, I think useful words. Words like clarity and words like delay. So the first thing I'm going to say, we didn't really speak about it much when we released the $1,086,000 to finish the A&E, specifically the design development drawings, is something pretty important. I know there's been a lot of discussion over the last few months about new school versus renovation, and certainly I, for one, still believe that a new school, in 10 or 20 years, I think that this community would, in the end, regret renovating the school, that a new school is a better idea for a lot of reasons, which I've already articulated. But by releasing the conditions, this board, and myself included, have basically moved on. in the sense that, I'm not going to, certainly speaking for myself, I'm not going to substitute my judgment for the judgment of the rest of the board or for the community. So when we talk about clarity and moving things forward, a lot of things have happened in the last week. Okay, the release of the $1,086,000, the release of all the other conditions based upon the MI and the review of a new school means that, directionally, this project has received a tremendous amount of clarity. Now the question is the word delay. Right now, the estimates we have in front of us come from June 20th of this year. At that point, a lot of work was done. There were various estimates and, kind of ways of backing into some numbers, and those were those used for the presentation in June and also used now. Right now, schematic design, I don't know if it's done or almost done. We have an MI, there's going to be design development. There will be new estimates. Okay, when those new estimates come in, okay, this board will act. Okay, in terms of delay, this idea, so now let's talk about delay. We were told in June that June 30th was the deadline. We have that in paper. That means June 30th, 24 is the deadline. So now the questions are, what can this board or the community do to accelerate this project? And there's two things we haven't really talked about. One is, currently the plan is that this item would be funded in fiscal '25. It's very possible, based upon the place we're in, that in fact, this board will ultimately, once the design development and the bids are updated, it could be December, it could be January, this board may actually fund this as an interim. I mean, that decision hasn't been made yet, but that's clearly on the table, that's being discussed. Okay, that is an acceleration in funding. Number two, I think the question has been raised at times, would we authorize a project without a 100% guarantee that we're going to get the full reimbursement? That discussion came up in Central Middle School because there the reimbursement amount was 6.5%. Here it's more like 15%, so it's a more material thing. So there are going to be discussions and deliberations at this board and other boards about when this project is ready for full funding, what we can do to try to accelerate it. But for us to sit around and say this project is being delayed is just not factually correct. Okay, this project was slated to be done in fiscal '25. Can we do an interim, speed it up? But either way, the date for the state is June 30th, 2024. So for those reasons, I do not plan to support this motion, but I would just, and again, I know everyone's going to take a different view on this and many may not agree with me, but I think in the last week, this project has made significant movement in a lot of ways, not just the MI, but the decision by all the boards that this will be a renovation and not a new school. I think those are very important things. People may discount that, but I think that's important. Now, we also have a question in terms of hearing from our building committee chair. Okay, I understand. I've heard that from many people on the board. James, all I would ask you is we've heard from you many times, and we heard from you in the budget committee, and I will recognize you, but I would just ask to, let's just try to keep our discussion focused. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Don't worry, I'm not long-winded. Okay, I would like to be clear on a couple points that I heard members raise this evening. To the comment about we only have estimates from architects, that is false. You've had those estimates for 4 months. It's from a construction manager who does estimates, professional estimates. So just to make sure you have the detail. So I would just say a couple things. First, you have a clear choice tonight. If you approve construction funds, we can start working on our state reimbursement and try to stay on track to start next summer. Alternatively, you can reject construction funds, which risks $6.5 million of state reimbursement and signs the town up for an expected $3 million additional. It's obvious to most, which is fiscally prudent. A problem we see and we hear from the community is that the goalposts keep moving. There's always another excuse. Last winter, the BET chair and vice chair asked us to get professional estimates and to do an analysis of new construction costs before considering construction funds. We did that. We provided it to the BET in June, and the BET rejected construction funding, ensuring the project missed the June 30 deadline. Second, in June, you asked us to go through the MI process and hold public hearings. We've done that. We got our MI 2 weeks ago and have now held 7 forums and 65 public meetings. Many of you have not attended a single one. Last week, BET Budget Committee members said they wanted us to get to the next round of estimates. You are getting those estimates anyway, but delaying your decision to that point risks the $9.5 million of state reimbursement and cost escalations. Now, to the point of urgency. Let me remind you, the school is under an OCR violation for lack of ADA access. Sewage floods the school during rainstorms. There is no building-wide sprinkler system. There is no HVAC system, and the entryway is not up to state security standards. Our plan fixes all of those things. The only thing more urgent would be a ceiling collapsing. Just today, a student fell down the stairs because of the lack of ADA access. This will continue until this project is funded. Now, you all know the Board of Ed unanimously supports this project. Mr. Kelly, I'm sure, will nod his head behind me. The Board of Selectmen unanimously supports this project. P&Z unanimously supports this project. And the Building Committee unanimously supports this project. The BET can support this project too, or you can make it cost even more by finding excuses not to provide full funding. I encourage you to fund this project now so we can begin to discuss it with the state and make sure we don't risk $6.5 million in reimbursement and an additional $3 million in cost escalations, not to mention wasting the taxpayer funds you just allocated to design the renovation. People come and ask me, where does this end? Why would you approve $2 million of design funding if you're going to reject construction funding? Those are questions I get from the community regularly from all sides of the aisle, and people are tired of the excuses. Finally, if you approve full funding tonight, we anticipate that a newly renovated Old Greenwich School will be unveiled in honor of its 125th anniversary in 2027. Thank you.
Okay, I think
I do have a question for the Building Committee Chair. I am concerned about reports and news or information being spread in the community that this renovation would put our children in harm's way, that this is dangerous because of hazardous wastes and other such things. I know children in that school, and those concerns are ones that I think need to be addressed here in this broader community. Is there any basis to such concerns that are being spread through the community?
Thank you, Mr. Weisbrod. So last week.
Hold on.
Well,
Okay. James?
So last week, we heard in the BET Budget Committee blatantly false information about chemicals and the safety of children during the renovation. Our construction team has safely and successfully managed 21 school projects in Connecticut that have been phased, occupied renovations where abatement work has been conducted. I can give you names of all of those projects. These types of projects are done all across the state, all across the nation on a regular basis. It is very standard. We are going to do this project by the book, and all kids will be safe. If one of you has questions like that, I would encourage you to check in with me rather than saying something demonstrably untrue that many consider to be a malicious intent.
James, we're not going to talk about people's intent here.
Okay.
You've been given the floor to answer the question. Please focus on that. Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Nisha?
Thank you, James, and I just want to just clarify that, the discussion that we had at the Budget Committee regarding remediation and asbestos and some of the other hazardous materials that might be in this school was really coming from a place of, have you discussed this with the community? I think, James, you've been very transparent that this building will need remediation. I don't think that at all is the discussion that we're having. I guess the question I'd ask for you is, do you believe that parents are aware that there will be asbestos remediation in this building? Just yes or no?
We have discussed that. We've had, as I told you, we've had 7 different forums.
That's not in your building committee, James?
Would you like me to answer the question?
No, just a yes or no is all I asked. Do you believe that parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have discussed that.
Okay, so I guess the second part of that, same part, when will that, I personally would like to know, when will that asbestos be remediated? Will it be when children are in the school or when children are out of the school? I mean, is there a plan?
Yes, we've hired a construction manager who is coming up with a phasing plan. This board has not approved construction funding, so we don't exactly know when it would start. But we have already gone through several iterations of phasing.
Yep.
The phasing is critical. And the way that this will work is we will follow all state and federal regulations for abatement activities. It will be very transparent. It will be thoroughly communicated with the principal and with all of the entire community. And the bottom line is the kids will be kept safe.
So James, I'm just a few questions, and I'm honestly, this is just coming from a spirit of, I have had parents call me and ask me, and I'm just going to ask you those questions because I did not know the answers to that. So the first question I'm being asked is, will there be trailers for the kids to go to while this, and I think the answer is no, but I would like to confirm from you.
Correct. There will be no trailers
Okay.
anticipated.
So just to be clear, if the remediation is going on when the kids are present, how will you address that? Meaning, will kids just be in one part of the school and then the remediation will be going on in the other part? And the reason I'm asking these questions is, James, is I'm actually getting parents asking me, what is the plan? And I don't know if you have communicated that clearly, not just to your building committee. Those meetings are Tuesdays, 7 a.m., those 65 meetings that you're referring to. Do you believe that every Old Greenwich school parent is aware that this school will be undergoing remediation? Or if there is a plan, whatever that plan might be, has it been discussed very clearly with the existing parents?
Are we going rather far afield
I think
here
we're-
beyond what we need to do for
Jeff?
this?
Jeff? Okay, that's the last question. Okay, let's just
We-
let James answer that question, and then we'll move on this topic.
So we have discussed that there will be phasing. We do already have a survey that describes all materials in the building. That is all public information. It has been shared months ago, just like the estimates you have today. Our website is updated regularly. The principal communicates with her community regularly. We are in the process of discussing a forum specifically focused on phasing and safety. That will be the entire focus in the coming weeks. Stay tuned. We'd love for you to be there, Miss Aurora.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think everybody on the, thanks for that. I think everybody on the board's had a chance to comment. And I thank everyone for their thoughts and comments. Nisha, can you call the roll?
Is the additional appropriation, ED3. Stephen, I will start with you.
You know I'm a yes.
Miriam?
Yes.
No.
Jeff?
Yes.
Leslie Moriarty?
Yes.
Leslie Tarkington?
No.
Dan
No,
Ozesmere?
I'm a no.
I'm a no. David Weisbrod?
Yes.
Karen Fasciolotis?
No.
Laura Erickson?
Yes.
Harry Fisher?
No.
6-6.
I believe that motion fails 6-6. Next item is the assessor's report. Our assessor, Elliott, Lauren Elliott. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of the BET. I'd like to present the assessor's report for October 2023. First of all, the personal property declarations were sent out on September 27th to all businesses here in town. They will be due back November 1st. If businesses need an extension, we're allowed to grant that extension now to December 15th. In addition, we're also offering electronic filing like we have in the past. Hopefully, more businesses will take advantage of this year. And to date, we have about 360 returns so far. The personal property declarations notoriously come in the last.
Upgrade, I'd like to thank my staff, led by the chief accountant and the Martha Ronigan, Mark, the accounts payable. In the past year, they've gone through two major projects, the TCM, Tyler Content Management, and the Munis upgrade. I left it in there just to show that it started in May when we started testing, and we went live the month of September, and they were major projects as far as being labor intensive.
Please extend our thanks and congratulations to your team on that as well.
I will. The retirement board, usually the retirement board meets the last Thursday of every month. It's moved to the last Friday. Why I bring that up? It's October 27th. It's the annual actuary report. And as you see in the controller's report, we're down over $1 million in the actuarially determined employer contribution. The trailing alternative investments came in favorably. We picked up $2.4 million, which adds probably about $200,000 more. I should say decreases the budget request for the 24-25 budget. And finally, as I said, we have a number of three employees. We still do not have a minute taker, but the good news is that the finalists for the interviews for the assistant to the controller, all four of the finalists had minute experience. We offered the position to one of the finalists. She accepted, and she currently has extensive experience in that minute taking area. And then the minute taker, the executive assistant, and then, as you all know, the treasurer has a vacancy. We did fulfill it, but it did not work out, and we had to go out for reposting. So I will answer any questions on the controller's report.
Harry?
It's a minor item, but don't I recall that Munis had a dedicated T1 line up to Boston? And you can now get rid of that? Save some money?
Sure.
Miriam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minarski, on the boiler, that was an it was an ARPA project that's overrunning?
Correct.
Could you remind me, what is going to be our recommended process for something like that? Is it an additional, an outright additional appropriation? Or I know there's a good cushion on interest income that came from invested ARPA monies. Are we thinking of sort of taking from Paul and giving to Peter so that it's not an additional appropriation, but somewhat a movement of monies? Or are we going to wait and use that pool on a specific thing in the
It's
future?
actually your call, the BET's call. The options are, it's a very good point. You can see in the very beginning of the controller's report that we have interest earnings of $834,000. So we're going to exceed the interest earnings between now and probably the deadline of December 31st of '24. Let's just say hypothetically it ends up at $50,000. Option number one is you could do, we need the appropriation to spend. You could have this source of funding can be from the ARPA interest, or you could just simply take it from the capital non-recurring fund.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
And then Jeff, and then Leslie Talkington, and then Leslie Moriarty.
In the conversation last month, there was regarding the ARPA funds that are being used for the Affordable Housing Trust. There was a reference of 2 questions from a committee that was formed to an outside attorney. Have you heard anything back from the outside attorney?
The answer is no, but I'd like to expand on the answer for the rest of the BET. The committee that was put together to answer the questions that were posed were Mr. Raymer, Ms. Posiolatis, myself, and Amina. And in the law department, Amina and I broke off, and we met with, I shouldn't say we met, we discussed over the telephone with Dave Panico and Keisha Palmer. They're lawyers for the Robinson and Cole firm. Robinson and Cole is also the bond attorney for the town. They're also the architects of the Stanford ordinance, the Affordable Housing Trust Ordinance, and the Declaration of Trust. We turned to them about 3 years ago to help us write our ordinance and our Declaration of Trust. And then they had an arrangement where the town attorney is the one that hires outside legal counsel. They hired Robinson & Cole for under $10,000 a few years ago. So we're in the process of rehiring them. There's 2 phases, okay? Phase 1 is the BET phase, and my phase. It's the one that's ARPA related. It was 3 Fridays ago, we had a conversation. Your 2 questions were posed, and then there was subsequent questions about being tax deductible and having this being a separate entity. As you all know, this is on the town's books, and it has the employer identification number for all of the monies that are on the town book. So it was a long-winded way of saying we haven't got an update from the Robinson & Cole on your 2 questions, but I think I promised and I forgot to send out the email that there was a legal opinion on the 2 issues about the entity and the employer identification. And when this meeting's going to go over, I'm going to take that and send it to the BET.
Thank you very much.
I just forgot to
Thank you very
send that
much,
out.
Pete.
Just one follow-up. Could an inquiry be made politely to the attorneys about when they think they might have an answer to the first 2 questions? Asking the question may refocus their attention and speed the process.
I will pose that to the law department. The law department is actually the one that's funding it and it has the arrangement as far as, I'll follow up with our law
By
department.
whatever process you think appropriate.
Thank you. And I believe Tarkington and then Moriarty.
So I just had a question. You gave us the heads up on the break stump actuarial presentation to the retirement board. Is there going to be some kind of little follow-on or whatever so that we also get to get his presentation on OPEB, or just at the same time he'll be sending in his actuarial presentation for OPEB? I mean, is there any date on that part of it?
The answer is no. The reason the answer is no is he's the actuary for the retirement board and the OPEB board. The OPEB board is part of the IAC.
Right.
And so that presentation, the OPEB presentation will be shared with the IAC in the OPEB board.
No, but I
you-
just meant scheduling it. Do you have any feeling for when
I
that will
keep
be?
asking.
Okay.
He's fulfilled the GASB reports, the GASB 7.5 and GASB 6.7, 6.8, one being the OPEB report for the auditors. He has two priorities. I should say, I'll put them in order. The first priority is getting the retirement board actuary report out, because we don't meet in November. The charter is clear. We have to have a report done by December 1st. His second priority was the auditors. He got the two GASB reports out. And unfortunately, to answer your question, OPEB is number 3, and I keep asking. He did give us for your budget guidelines, I know why you're asking, and the placeholder is $5 million.
Thank you, Pete.
And Leslie?
Yeah, this is just a minor clarification on the ARPA interest. That, per the FAQs from the federal government, the town gets to keep the interest on the ARPA funds that we have in our possession that we haven't spent yet, and it's not subject to the same ARPA rules. It really
Correct.
just goes into
That-
our general fund with no conditions on it. Do you, in looking at the treasurer's report, are you accounting for the interest within the general fund or within the ARPA fund?
No, it's in you know, all the funds have a letter, like the general fund is A. There's 2 grant funds, the Board of Education is E, and the F fund is the other than the educational. We have to track it separately, and it's isolated in the F fund, which is known as the grant
So you have
fund.
to track the interest separately?
Correct.
All right, so when we allocate it to Miriam's question before, we'll have to identify what pool of funds we want it from. All right.
So for example, when we look at the amount of interest that we put in our budget, I think it was $6 million this year. That does not include the ARP.
No.
Yep. Thanks. Can I get a motion to, of course.
I have one question. Pete, in your report on the Havemeyer building, staggering $265,000 was received as partial reimbursement. Do we have any idea whether that's the top number or whether there's more coming, and any idea of how much? And then my second part of the question is, have they installed, as part of the remediation, the alarms for water in the Havemeyer building, or do you know what's going on with that?
I don't know the answer to the second question, and the answer to the first question is going to top out between $500,000 and $600,000 total.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the controller's report?
So moved.
Okay, so it's Leslie Tarkington, second David Weisbrod. Any objections? 12-0-0. Oh, treasurer's report.
The treasurer's report, there's not much notable. I mentioned the balances in the ARPA monies. A low light instead of a highlight is the OPEB interest. We had a bad month. It was a negative $1,685,000. To year-to-date is about $1,500,000. So conversely, last year, the OPEB fund outperformed the retirement board by a lot. Now it's flipping a little bit in the other direction. Other than that, there's nothing unusual about the balances as of September 30th.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Leslie Tarkington, second Stephen Selbst. Any objections? Okay, that's accepted 12-0-0. Okay. Okay, the next item is the approval of the meeting minutes. There's three, I'm sorry. There's, next item, approval of the meeting minutes. We have a regular meeting of July 17th, 23. Can I get a motion to approve those? Harry Fisher, second. Stephen Selbst, any objections? Okay, that's it, approved 12-0-0. And if somebody wasn't at one of these meetings and wants to abstain, just please let me know. And the next one was a special meeting, September 13th, 2023. That was, I believe, on the Cordic item. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Harry Fisher, Stephen
Second.
Selbst.
I think I wasn't there, yeah.
Okay, yep. So that's, yeah, so that was 10-0-0. And Nisha. Oh, yes, my apologies. So with Nisha and Miriam abstaining because they were not at the meeting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it has it on there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I don't remember.
And then the last meeting, regular meeting, September 18th, 2023, a motion to approve?
So moved.
Laura, of course.
I'll second, but I have a question. In the minutes, it's noted that Mr. Fisher was going to submit an amended report for the audit committee. Did that happen? I didn't see it.
I
Harry?
believe I submitted it to the controller, but I'll double check that.
Okay, if we could just clarify, make sure that happened, that would be great.
Okay, thank you for that. Any objections? No, just mine. Yep, and Miriam Cruiser, so it's 11-0-1 with Miriam Cruiser absent, okay? Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Miriam and Harry. Any objections? So that passes 12-0-0.
Mr. Les's